Hello everyone, it's Lindsay, and today I'm doing a very highly requested video from you guys. Tons and tons of people are asking for a flip through of the pages I've done in my illustrating Bible. Now, I haven't done one of these before in this Bible just because 95% of the entries in here have process videos for them. But I understand not everybody has time to watch all of my videos, so let me go ahead and just do a flip through of my entries so you can kind of see what I've been working on. Now, I'm not going to do them in any order as far as chronologically or by kits or anything like that. I'm just going to go from the front to the back and just kind of go through it that way. Now, when you were watching this video, the day that it goes live, the Illustrating Bible has been restocked over at Dayspring. It's very, very small quantity. They're expecting it to sell out by the end of the day. So rush on over and grab one of these if you haven't gotten it already. I'll have the link down below for you guys. And this is the chunky Big Mama Bible with the coil binding. I have a full review of this Bible. I will link it down below for you guys so you can check that out. It is Big Mama. She's chunky, and you can see I have packed it full of all kinds of dimension and entries, and I am loving it. So check out that process or the review down below. I will not be linking the process videos for each page just because there's so many of them. So take a look through my channel. You can find most all of the process videos for this Bible. So as we jump in, we're going to start with this entry here in Genesis. And this is one of the first ones that I did when I got this Bible, just to kind of test out some different mediums. So I did watercolor on here. I will link down below my watercolor galaxy tutorial for you guys if you're interested in that. And as you can see, very minimal bleed through, but I did use a lot of water and a lot of pigment. And most of the entries in this Bible are not on gesso or page prep. So I will mention if it is a prepped page. But so there's just a quick entry, a simple entry just to kind of start off the Bible here. This entry here is in Genesis chapter 2 verses 24 and 25, and this was one that there is not a video for. Again, this is one I did when I was testing out this Bible when I first got it, and so I just have a photo of my husband and I was showing how to do a tip-in for some more like private prayer journaling. This cut file is one that I created. I have it as a freebie on my blog, and so you can go to the freebie tab on LindseyDecor.com and find the cut file for this. And I just used the You Are Loved collection from Illustrated Faith, did some ink smushing in the background. Actually, I think it's gelatos in the background of this particular page. Again, no page prep, and this coloring you see here is actually transfer from the watercolor on this side, so it's not bleed through. And if I just took an eraser, that would come right off. Moving right along here, there's this entry in Exodus chapter 16 verses 1 through 5, or 1 through 4, and this was one of the By the Well for God kits. So I just did some brush lettering, used some elements from that kit, some watercolors. Really simple, and you can see again, no page prep. The only thing that bled through was my stamping, and that's probably because I used something like a dye ink, like a Gina K dye ink, and so those do bleed through, but it'll be pretty easy to cover that up. Let's see here. Not everything has tabs, so let's see, this entry here I'll show you really briefly because there is a process video coming for this next week for Creative Retreat, and so this hasn't gone up quite yet, but just doing a tag in here, and this is for Deuteronomy 6:5, so stay tuned for that process video. This one here is one from the, I think it's called Power-Filled Prayers. It's an online class from Illustrated Faith and Tanya Hamilton. That's Messy Bible. And I have not finished this class actually. There's still a couple more entries that I can do, and it's all digital devotional content and printables. And so I do have several process videos on my channel sharing some different mixed media techniques that I've done. You can see I use some foam adhesive to pop up the title. That's one nice thing about having the coil binding, is that you can really add some dimensional pieces. And another thing that you'll see throughout this Bible, because it has the bigger margins, is I do a lot more prayer journaling and note taking and that kind of thing. So I do still do, you know, painting and art and things like that, but I always leave myself a big chunk of room to do some prayer journaling in this particular Bible. So this was acrylic paints, and so you can see acrylic paints, of course, do not bleed through on the back side there. This entry here was for Revival Camp from Illustrated Faith last year, and this is in 1 Chronicles 16:11. And I love mixing scrapbooking supplies with my Bible journaling. So you can see this is some die cut pieces from a scrapbooking line. I think this is the Here and There collection from Crepe Paper. And I just created a little tip in where I could add some prayer journaling below there. Use some chipboard alphabets, some print and pray items. And then here I left myself plenty of room to write out some cross-referencing of scriptures that went along with this devotional that we were working on. So you can see I do cover the text in some of the entries. 99% of my entries I try not to cover the text, but this particular Bible is not one that I study from or take to church with me. This is solely for art journaling and prayer journaling, and so if the text gets covered, it's not the end of the world for me. I have other Bibles to read. Of course, there's huge margins, so if that bothers you, you can just keep everything into the margin and use it that way. But the text is, you know, kind of small and is not super easy to read from, and so this is just for my art journaling. And you can see no bleed through with that because it's all like die cuts, no paint or anything on there. Moving right along, this one here, I don't believe that there is a process video for this one. This was for the Revival Camp devotional as well, just using some elements from that kit, some chipboard stickers, some little confetti pieces, and then just really focusing on some note taking there. Really fun entry. Let's see. Here's one using some products from Felicity Jane. Now, Felicity Jane, I am on their creative team, and they are primarily a scrapbooking company, so they're not necessarily meant for Bible journaling, but I love incorporating that scrapbooking look and processes in my Bible journaling. So I found a digital cut file and did some paper piecing, cut out some snowflakes out of these reflective like metallic papers. There is a process video for this one, and again left myself some room for some prayer journaling. This is in Psalm 5 verse 3. Used some puffy alpha stickers. Really fun entry there. This one is using some printables from Scribbles with Grace, and it's an Etsy shop. Bridget has all kinds of digital items in there, and this particular set was one that you could have customized with your one little word, your word of the year, which for me is joy. And so these are printed out on cardstock and then just put together. There is a process video for this one, and this is in Psalm 16:11. So I just did some prayer journaling, little splashes of watercolor, and then it's just really piecing together die cut pieces. Let's see. This entry here, there is not a process for this one. Again, this was another one that I did when I was testing out this Bible initially, and just wanted to play with some mixed media. So I did some texture paste that was mixed with Distress ink through a stencil, stamped with some big brush markers. Also did a foiling technique. I haven't done any foiling in a while on my channel. If that's something you're interested in seeing again, leave me a comment down below. Let me know. I can definitely do some more foiling. I just haven't pulled it out in a while, but you can see that really fun foiling. This here was stamped with some VersaFine Onyx black ink. Again, not prepped. So you can kind of see there's a lot of shadowing from that VersaFine, but this isn't really technically bleed through, and no bleed through really from anything else, just shadowing. And this is in Psalm 18:35. This entry here is for the Grace and Gratitude devotional kit from Illustrated Faith and Dayspring. I don't believe that there's a process for this one. I did a couple process videos, but a lot of them I did just on my own. I did do some stamping with some Distress Oxide inks, some brush lettering, and then used some items from the kit. I did go ahead and attach the devotional content right into the coil binding. I will link a video down below showing how I do this in case you're wondering or have missed that. And I want to show you, this page is not prepped. This is Psalm 23:3. And you can see I stamped with Distress Oxide inks, which are a pigment dye ink blend. There's a teeny tiny little bit of maybe bleed through, but for the most part, it didn't bleed through. So these pages are awesome for using a variety of mediums. And again, just lots of prayer, journaling, and keeping the artwork pretty simple for that. This entry here is another one for Revival Camp from Illustrated Faith, and this is for Psalm 37 verse 5. Just used some printable items or like print and pray that were on cardstock, did a little bit of texture stamping in the background, used one of the Classine envelopes, I think from the kit, to create a little pocket for some prayer journaling there. So just showing you how to do some more private journaling. There might be a process video for this one. I'm not sure. If you search LindseyDecor Revival Camp, it should come up with all my Revival Camp videos. Now, right here, what you're seeing is actually where I closed my Bible before the paint was dry on this side. So a little bit transferred, but hey, that happens sometimes. And so this entry here is using some products from Creative Retreat Kits. I did some stamping with some Creative Retreat inks, did some stamp masking, used just a variety of products, and did some prayer journaling. You can see I don't tab all of my entries, and I get a lot of questions about that. I tab most of them, but not always. There is no purpose behind the tabs other than just showing kind of where I have entries. But sometimes just with the layout of the entry, a tab just isn't going to work. It's just gonna, I don't know, it just doesn't visually work with it. There's no real reason behind it. Just sometimes I tab and sometimes I don't. You can see here I stamped with Creative Retreat inks. There's some shadowing but no bleed through, so this will be very easy to cover up on the back side there. This one here, there is a process video for. If you search LindseyDecor, I think if you search LindseyDecor Messy Bible, it should come up with this one here. It was kind of funny, lots of bloopers, lots of mistakes. I did follow one of Messy Bible, Tanya Hamilton's online courses that she has, and I kind of did my own thing with it, and there were some mistakes along the way. I did prep this page with clear watercolor ground and did some watercoloring, and so there's no bleed through, but you can see the watercolor ground just makes the watercolor act just a little bit differently on top of it. And in that course, she shows us how to do some lettering, and then I just did some note taking. And this is in Psalm 56 verse 3. And again, there's no tab on that one there. This one's using some more products from Felicity Jane. I did some ink blending, some really soft ink blending in the background with a makeup brush to give you this really soft color, and some paper piecing. This is in Psalm 59, and I think it's verse 16. Verse 16. I have it right up there. So yeah, you're just using lots of different scrapbooking supplies to put that entry together, and then some prayer journaling there. And you can see there's no real bleed through, just shadowing, even though I think I stamped with some VersaMagic ink on here as well. So no bleed through there. Here's one using some more Felicity Jane products. Create a little pocket with an embossed tag. There is a process video for this one. I have an entire Felicity Jane playlist on my YouTube channel, so you can see all of those. And then this one had some private journaling on the back side of the tag there. And then just some watercolor splashes, really simple. This is in Psalm 98 verse 1. And you can see no bleed through there. Here's another entry for grace and gratitude. Again, sticking that devotional content right into the binding. And this is for Psalm 105, verse 43. I did some Distress Oxide ink smushing, used some of the transparency pieces from the kit, some brush lettering, some stamping. And what you'll see here is just maybe a little bit of bleed through from the Distress Oxide ink, but not really bad. It's mostly just shadowing that I can cover up on this side here. So there's a look at that entry. I'm trying to go through these quickly so the video isn't an hour long, but you can always pause and take a look at these in closer detail if you need to. This is another one that I did when I first got the Bible when I was testing things out. So I did some Distress Oxide ink smushing in the background, and I used the All People, All Nations collection from Illustrated Faith. Did some prayer journaling there. And this is in Psalm 143, verse 10. And you can see there's a little bit of bleed through from the Distress Oxide ink, the blues and greens right here, but really not too bad considering, and that'll be very easy to cover up. And this was very, very wet, had lots and lots of pigment on it, and it did really surprisingly well. Here's another Power-Filled Prayers entry. Again, that's that online course from Illustrated Faith. I used some dimensional adhesive behind the title, some prayer journaling, and some mixed media in the background. So some Distress Oxide ink smushing and acrylic paint. This is for Proverbs 3, 5 through 6. And you'll notice there's a little bit of bleed through from the Distress Oxide ink, but not too bad. Just a couple little places that'll be easy to cover up. So there's a look at that entry. This one here is in Proverbs, and this is Proverbs 11, verse 17, I believe. And this is another one that I did when I was testing out the Bible using the Fruit of the Spirit collection from Illustrated Faith. And I just circle punched a bunch of different pattern papers, cut those circles in half, and layered them to create this little scalloped piece that you can flip up, and did some prayer journaling underneath. There's also a little bit of ink blending, some word stickers. Again, really, really simple. I love the margins in this because you can kind of play around with different positioning space and have just tons of space to play around with some larger pieces there. Here's another Grace and Gratitude devotional. This is for Proverbs 16:3. Again, and sticking that devotional right in there. And this one I did some stamping with Neocolor 2 crayons, I believe. Some texture stamping, some brush lettering, and some prayer journaling. Really simple. And again, just shadowing, but no bleed through on the back there. This one was another one of those testing out pages. This is in Ecclesiastes 4, verse 10 and 11. This one I did some stamping with the Gina K inks, and these are a dye-based ink, and so you can see they do bleed through on these pages, but that's okay. I can just use some white gesso or something to cover that up. Some thickers, and then some prayer journaling there. This one here, I do have a process video for, and I believe it's a Tip Tuesday about watercolor ground. So this is using a clear watercolor ground, which is different than gesso. Watercolor ground is a little bit more absorbent than gesso, so it's meant to work with watercolors. Definitely check out that video if you want to see the comparison and differences. But so this is prepped with that clear watercolor ground and then watercolored, and then did some brush lettering up here. Did some prayer journaling. This is in Isaiah 40, verse 29. And you can see no bleed through since it's prepped with that watercolor ground. Really, really love just simple, messy watercolor florals like this. This entry here is again for the Grace and Gratitude devotional. There is a process video for this one in Isaiah 55, verse 6. I did some mixed media on some cardstock and then cut out these shapes out of the cardstock and then adhered them down to the page. Did some brush lettering, some stamping, prayer journaling. Really, really fun. Love the look of this page there. There is a little bit of bleed through, and that's because I use some of those Gina K dye inks that do bleed through, but I can just use some white gesso or acrylic paint to cover that up. Not a problem at all. So there's a look at that entry. Moving right along, we have this one here, and this is an example of the titles. So the titles are super bold and run down the margin of the page. So this is for Jeremiah. I went ahead and canceled that out with some white gesso and then created my page. There should be a process video for this one, again, in the Felicity Jane playlist. So this is Jeremiah 1 verse 5. Did some stamping, and again, just using some scrapbooking pieces, die cuts, tons and tons of margin space, and then some quick, easy prayer journaling there. Really love that entry. And no bleed through since it was prepped with that white gesso on that side. Let's see, this one here is using some products from By the Well for God. This is in Jeremiah 23 verse 5. This was the Christmas kit from By the Well for God. Did some stamping and lots of journaling. I love just the depth of the devotional content from By the Well for God. So a lot of my entries for By the Well for God are pretty simple, and then I leave myself plenty of room for note taking and prayer journaling and things like that. So this was lots of stamping, but you can see just shadowing, maybe a smidge of bleed through from the brush marker that I colored in with, but not anything too horrible there. Here's another By the Well for God entry. This is in Lamentations 3:25. I believe that there is a process video for this one. I did some stamping, layered some die cut pieces, die cut out of some patterned papers. If you didn't know, By the Well for God usually releases some digital papers in their shop to go along with their devotional kits. And so I just printed that out on cardstock and then die cut some alphas out of it to kind of make my own little alpha stickers. And you can see a little bit of bleed through where I stamped. I believe I used the VersaFine Vintage Sepia ink, I think is what I used. So I don't know that it's technically bleed through. It's probably more heavy shadowing, but it is pretty dark on these white pages. And so I'd have to cover this with like white gesso or something to make it easy to work on. But I mean, I'm probably not going to do a horribly ton amount of journaling in Lamentations, so I'm not too concerned about that there. Let's see. Here's one in Hosea using some products from Open Journey. Open Journey is a Etsy shop. She sent me some of her products to play with. She has physical items and digital items. And so there should be a process video for this one here. This is Hosea chapter 2, verse 14. Lots and lots of journaling from her devotional content, and then using some die cut pieces. And then I believe it is ink smushing in the background with Distress Oxide inks. So you can see a little bit of bleed through from that dark blue ink, but not too bad. It'll be pretty easy to incorporate that into an entry there. So really love the style of her kits. They're really pretty. Okay, here's another one of the Open Journey kits. This is Zephaniah 3:17. And this is one of her, I think they were like little cards. They were all Remain in His Love cards. And there is a process video for this one. Lots of mixed media techniques. She has lots of mixed media on her artwork, and so I love using that as inspiration. And so this was using like Neocolor 2 crayons and ink smushing and stamping and all kinds of fun things. And then some prayer journaling there. And you can see a little bit of bleed through from the reds, but not too bad. I can easily cover that up. Let's see here. A couple of entries here. This one was using some die cut pieces that were sent to me from scrapbook.com. This is an Amy Tangerine set of scrapbooking supplies, and this is in Matthew Matthew chapter 5, verse 14 and 15 up here at the top. And so just layering some die cut pieces, doing some texture stamping, and then some prayer journaling. So really fun and no bleed through there. I do believe there's a process video for this. I think I use Versamagic chalk inks to stamp with, and that's why there's no bleed through. This one here was a kit from By the Well for God during Thanksgiving time. And so this is in Matthew 7, verses 7 through 12. I did some watercolor, used some die cut pieces from the kit, some prayer journaling. There should be a process for this one, I do believe. I think I have an entire By the Well for God playlist if you're wanting to see all my By the Well for God processes. And again, no bleed through. This is just where paint got behind the page, but no bleed through there. This one here is for Creative Retreat Kits in Matthew 18, verses 15 through 20. And did some stamping and coloring with big brush markers and some prayer journaling. So really, really simple, but I love the colors of this entry. Maybe a smidge of bleed through from the dark brush markers, but not anything too bad. It's mostly just shadowing on the backside there. And there is a process video for this one. Should be over on the Creative Retreat channel. Here's another one from By the Well for God. So again, just keeping it pretty minimal and simple and leaving myself tons of room to document. I believe I was documenting some song lyrics here. This is in Mark chapter 12, verse 17. Use some alpha stickers, some texture stamp in the background there, some die cut pieces. Shadowing but no bleed through. This one was using some Kaiser Craft scrapbooking products that I got from By the Well for God. There is a process video for this one. This is in Luke chapter 1, verse 37. Created a little tag, and this kind of covers up the book title there. Did some stenciling and some mixed media in the background there, and just layering up some die cut pieces. Really, really pretty, and there is a process video for this one on my channel. Luke 2, the birth of Jesus. I believe it's the story of the birth of Jesus. This was using a Creative Retreat kit in December, or actually it was November, but it was a Christmas kit. And this is one of those little micro journaling. So I do have some room here if I wanted to come in and add some more art journaling or note taking or something up here. I've got room for that. And this was just some simple stamping and stickers. A little bit of bleed through maybe from the stamping. I'm not quite sure what ink I used here. It may have been Oxide or Creative Retreat chalk ink. That's actually what it might be. It might be the Creative Retreat chalk ink. So the chalk inks from them do bleed through just a little bit. The pigment inks do not. All right, moving right along here, we jump into the Mark Maker devotional kit from Illustrated Faith. This is the new kit that just released last month. It is sold out, but you can still get the printable version. And this is in Luke chapter 8, verse 39. Used some alpha stickers, did some stamping with Neocolor 2 crayons, and die cut pieces, lots of prayer journaling. Really, really fun entry there. Love the colors of this kit. And then you can see on the back side here is a Creative Retreat entry. This is for Luke chapter 9, verses 46 through 48. Use some printable items from Creative Retreat kits. If you didn't know, as part of their Facebook Insiders group, they have free printables every month to go along with the kits. And so I used those, printed out on cardstock, and then some stamping as well. Again, lots of note-taking and prayer journaling here. Really cute. Here is one using some printables from A Pile of Ashes. She has an Etsy shop, and she releases all kinds of cute products. So this was at Christmas time, and this is for the parable of the lost son in Luke chapter 15. And so I printed elements on clear sticker paper, and then brought in like some glitter washi to make a bow, just to add, you know, some dimension to what would otherwise just be printables, and some stamping and a little note there. So simple entry, but really cute. Here we get into the I Am devotional kit from By the Well for God. This is in John chapter 2. We're looking at the first sign where water is turned into wine. There is a process video for this one where I show some no-line watercoloring and stamping and things like that. So you want to check that out. And then this one is from that same devotional. This is for the second miracle in John chapter 4, and this was just, I don't believe that there's a process video for this one. It's just stamping with Neocolor 2 crayons, layering some die cuts, again leaving myself room for plenty of notes and things like that. So kind of wanting to keep it consistent since it's all from the same kit. It's all kind of the same colors. And then the third miracle in John chapter 5, again, Neocolor 2, stamping, some die cut pieces. So really try to keep the same formula, you can see, as I went through these entries, and that kind of helped with the consistency. I didn't have to like come up with a new plan and just could focus on the devotional content itself. I have not finished that kit yet, so I still have some entries that I need to do for that particular kit. I get lots of questions about that, like how I manage all the kits. I don't always get through all the kits. I am in a unique situation where I have, you know, a handful of kits each month that I'm working through, and that's not ideal. You should only be working through maybe a couple of them. And so I don't always finish them. I do at least read through the devotional content. I don't always get all of them journaled in my Bible, but that's okay. I do study and read the devotionals. This one here was using, I think this is for wild hair kits. This is in Romans chapter 6, verse 23. Using some products from crepe paper during the Christmas time. Created a little tag here, did some ink smushing and stamping, layering up some pieces from that scrapbooking collection. And you can see maybe a little bit of bleed through from the Distress Oxide ink, but really not too bad at all. So, and some text does get covered, but like I said, I don't use this as my study Bible. This one here was using some products from Illustrated Faith. This is in Romans chapter 15, verse 13. And so I think I'm stamping with something sparkly. Maybe a gelato. Maybe it's a sparkly gelato that I stamped with. Used some die cut pieces, some prayer journaling, and maybe some Neocolor 2 art marks. So you can see no real bleed through on the back side, just some shadowing there. This one here is for the second Grace and Gratitude kit from Illustrated Faith during the Christmas season. This is in 1 Corinthians 13, verse 7 and 8, I believe. Using some stickers from that kit, some acrylic paint, some stamping. These were the Gina K inks, but the lighter colors don't seem to bleed through. Actually, no, I probably inked that up with brush markers now that I think about it. It's probably brush markers, and then this is a Creative Retreat ink. I don't know, guys. Some of these are from so long ago. This is from December, so I use a lot of different products, but no real bleed through. And actually, we missed an entry here. So this is a By the Well for God entry. There is a process video for this one using items from the kit, doing some texture stamping. Again, kind of sticking with that micro journaling down in the bottom there. So I have some room if I wanted to come back and add more up there, I could. So there's a look at those. Here's another one from Grace and Gratitude. So actually two of them here. These are both from Grace and Gratitude. So I've got the devotionals in there. And you can see how I put them in there so they open and lay flat on the pages that they're meant to go with. This is 2 Corinthians 5, 1 through 2, and then 2 Corinthians 9, 8. And you can see very similar techniques. So doing some brush lettering. This was actually some stamping and acrylic paints. This is just stamping and brush markers. So kind of the same gist of things there for those pages. This one here is for Creative Retreat Kits, and this is in 2 Corinthians 9, verse 15. Did some like paper piecing with patterned papers. This is Distress Oxide inks in the background, I believe, ink smishing, and some prayer journaling. And no real bleed through because I can kind of see a hint of green on this page. So I didn't cover it up, but you can see, you can barely see the green with this entry once you've added stuff to it. So don't let bleed through intimidate you. Don't let that stop you. This is another Creative Retreat entry. This is in 2 Corinthians 12, verse 9, using some enamel shapes, some stamping, alpha stickers, prayer journaling, and some ink splatters. So you can see I used a lot of the same types of techniques. Looks like I stamped this with one of their chalk inks, and so there is a little bit of bleed through, you can see there. Another Creative Retreat Kits entry. This is in Galatians chapter 3, verse 26. And this was some stamping. There is a process video for this one, using the hearts to make little flowers, and then did kind of a Mad Lib style prayer journaling or note taking down at the bottom there. Lots of Creative Retreats. So here's another Creative Retreat entry, but before you get to that one, I have this little piece. So this kind of shows you how you can journal multiple entries on the same page. So this is for Ephesians 2, verse 10. I'm trying to see if it's all the same verse, which it might not be. This is Ephesians 2, 14 through 15. So it all falls on the same page. So I have this little tip-in piece. There is a video for this. Again, this is from Messy Bible, Tanya Hamilton, one of her online classes. And then she sends some physical item for you to play with. So I did this entry, there's a video for that, and used that to take a whole bunch of notes on the back side from her little mini devotional that she does. And then this is an entry for Creative Retreat Kits. This was a napkin technique. This is over on their YouTube channel and my YouTube channel. Created a little tag with some embossing, using some stickers, and then I could take notes on the back side of the tag if I needed to. So there's a fun way to kind of work with these big, bold titles is by using the napkin technique there. So a couple things going on. This one here, there is a process video for doing some tracing. So these are thicker pages, so it's a little bit harder to trace in these. So I do show how I do that on that video there. Did some watercoloring. This is just a sticker from Illustrated Faith, some prayer journaling. This is in Philippians 4, verses 6 and 7. Really simple entry there, and no tab. And you can see no bleed through. That is watercolor and just pen on that entry. Getting towards the end here, guys. Here's another Creative Retreat entry. There is a video for this. This is white heat embossed and then ink blending over the top of it, and then just some stickers. This is for 2 Timothy 3, 16 and 17. And you can see no bleed through, just some like shadowing where the heat embossing is, but not too bad. Simple entry for that. Here's another Grace and Gratitude, Grace and Gratitude from Illustrated Faith, and kind of did that same little stamping cluster, prayer journaling, note-taking, using stickers and elements from the kit. There should probably be a process video for this one. You can see some of my stamping bled through, but that is the Gina K inks, once again, the dye inks. But not too bad, I can just cover that with some white acrylic paint. So there's a look at that entry. Again, this one here is from Grace and Gratitude in December, using elements from the kit, adding these little confetti pieces. I actually stapled them and then attached them to the page. That way the staple doesn't go through the back of the page. There is a process video for this one. Again, some note-taking and prayer journaling. This is in Hebrews 12, verse 2. So there's a look at that. This one here, you can see some bleed through already. So this was an entry for By the Well for God in James 1 verse 12. And I did some ink smushing with frayed burlap Distress Oxide ink, which is one of my favorite Distress Oxides. It has these browns and greens, really pretty. And what I did was I dipped the bottom of a jar in the ink and then stamped with it. And so that is what's bleeding through here, is where I stamped with that Distress Oxide ink. So just keep that in mind. Those are going to bleed through a little bit. I used some die cut pieces, letter stickers, and then just some note taking there for that entry. Here's another By the Well for God entry. I do have a video for this showing how to make this transparency tip-in. I get a lot of questions about using transparencies, and so I did some stamping on the transparency, colored it in with some acrylic paint, and then did some different like feather I think they were stamped with Neocolor 2 crayons, and then cut out feathers and leaves to make this wreath tip-in piece. And this is for James 1:17. So that's kind of a fun element if you're not wanting to work directly on the pages. Here is one for Revival Camp. This is in 1 Peter 4:11. I did some stamping with Neocolor 2 crayons, used some elements from the kit, and a little prayer journaling. Another little micro entry here, so I have room where I can come back and journal other things if I need to, and no bleed through for that entry there. And that is it for this Bible. So quite a few entries. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave those down below. I'm sure you'll be asking about where videos are. Please just search through the different playlists. There are so many entries and so many videos. I can't link them all. So take a peruse through, maybe stumble upon something you haven't seen before. I'll try to link anything that I can down below that's pertinent. Like I said, you can pick up the Bible today if it's still in stock. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. And until next time, thank you so much. Bye-bye.